Hey there, Wranglers. It's good to see you. Time for another roundup. Today, we're going to be talking about some paranormal stuff, so that'll be a lot of fun. Smash the like and subscribe button if you want to. Now, I've updated my Patreon, and the $3 tier is the only one I have right now, but I've got a lot of photos there. I got some behind the scenes stuff, so quite a bit of photos, behind the scene photos that I've made. So if you want to take a look at that, go check out the Patreon and check out the PayPal if you want to contribute. Okay, enough of that. We all hate that whenever people do it, but that's how we do our thing here on YouTube. Anyway, today we're talking about talking to the dead, and talking to the dead has been something that people have tried to do ever since the dead, you know, every, people have tried to do for all of recorded history. Now, this it takes many forms, as you know, and I'm switching glasses here from my cool glasses to my dork glasses, if you will. People have tried to do this many different ways. They've used mediums. They've used machines that they swear can talk with the dead. They use cards like tarot cards or things like that. Crystal balls, which is a form of scrying. Um, Automatic writing is another thing they've tried. All different ways of trying to talk to the dead. And there's a couple that I'm going to focus on today because I think they're particularly interesting. Now, first of all, let me define some terms here. One of the terms I'm going to define is called necromancy. Okay. Now, all of you who have played these MMO like fantasy games, a lot of times you have a chance to be a necromancer, and he somehow controls the dead or other. It's not what that originally meant, and it's kind of an abuse of the term. Not abuse, but using the term wrong. Necromancer is someone who speaks with the dead. It's not a wizard that raises the dead. They speak with the dead. And if you're a Christian, you're not allowed to be a necromancer. You're not allowed to speak with the dead. It says right there in the Bible. In fact, there's an incident where King Saul, the guy that was trying to kill King David, trying to kill David, went to the Witch of Endor, not the one where the Ewoks live, but there was a place called Endor in the Middle East. He went there to talk to the dead. He went there to talk to the spirit of Elijah. Well, when the spirit of Elijah rose, when the witch summoned him, the spirit itself was so terrifying that the witch and King Saul booked it out of there, and they didn't ask the thing any questions. So anyway, that's an example there, and then from then on, there's been a prohibition of it. So we've got that covered. Now I remember I've got some recent experience with this, not necessarily talking to the dead, but recently, earlier this year, I had a son pass away, and I wanted nothing more than to communicate with him, and so did his mother. You just have this thing in you that just you feel you're always going to feel the loss, but you feel like you just want to talk to him, one last time and kind of just deal with things or something. Same thing happened when my dad died. I remember sitting down and without thinking, started looking on the internet for some place I could go talk to my dad. And this was after he was dead. And I, obviously didn't find anything like that because it doesn't exist. And I wouldn't trust it even if it did, but it was just an instinct to go try and find an email or something somewhere I could talk with my father. That's how powerful this drive can be. Now, two things I'm going to talk to you about today. Well, one primarily, and then I'll give you a little bit of history on it, is something called a psychomantium. It's a big word. I'll probably put it in the description, but it's a tool used for talking with the dead. And you take a small room, hopefully small room, and it's a dimly lit room with a comfortable chair and a mirror that you're facing and you're looking at. Now, ideally, this dimly lit room only has one light source, like a candle or a small light bulb or something like that. And you don't want it reflecting in the mirror. You want it placed someplace where it can just generate ambient light for you, to dim ambient light so you can look at this mirror. And if you look into this mirror long enough, you're supposedly be able to speak with the dead. This technique was popularized by a man named Raymond Moody. Now, I'm going to let you do research on Raymond Moody yourself, but he was born here in Georgia, and he worked in a prison. He had some actual academic credentials, and then he started talking about life after death. But he is one of the ones that discusses the Psychomantium and supposedly has success with it. That's how you build them. I don't recommend trying it. You'll probably scare the hell out of yourself. But that's what a psychomantium is: a chair, a mirror, a dimly lit room where the light source doesn't reflect, and you look into the mirror, and eventually, I guess the dead show up, and you can start chatting with them. This was based on something, not based on, I should say, it was, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, its precursor was something called a Necromanteion, the Necromanteion of Acheron. This was in ancient Greece. Now, there's a bunch of ancient Greek words here to sift through, and I'm not going to get into that because it will drag the video down and it'll be hard to say. But look up Necromanteion of Acheron. If I'm even saying it right, maybe I'll put it in the description. It was a place. It was like a temple, and people would go there to speak with the dead. They speak with the oracles and all that. And it was between three. It was basically at the intersection of three rivers, and it gives the name of the rivers. And I'm not going to try to pronounce them, but I'll give you the English translation. One of the rivers was called Joyless. The other river was called Burning Coals. The last river was called Lament. Okay, so Joyless, Burning Coals, and Lament. Pretty dark stuff. Well, you're talking to the dead. Why wouldn't it be sad? Anyway, different people would go to this necromantian, necromantian, and they speak with the oracle of the dead and that kind of thing, hopefully trying to make contact with them. And the location of this place there's a debate on where it was and all that kind of thing. But that's not the important part of this. We're going back up to the Psychomantium again. That's how these people did it. And any of these techniques, I don't know, people swore by it or they've not worked or any of that kind of thing. And there's people that claim the dead speak to them in dreams or in visions or, even phone calls. We've all heard the story of somebody gets a phone call from grandma or grandpa and they talk to them for a few minutes, and then maybe the phone sounds really strange, and then guess what you get? You find out an hour later that an hour before you got the phone call, grandma or grandpa died. Some traditions talk to their ancestors, are able to actually communicate with them. They say they can communicate with their ancestors and communicate with the dead, the shamans and stuff like that. But those are some other things that we have. But that'll give you an overview of speaking with the dead. If there is life after death, is this possible? That's the big question. There's two big questions that got to be answered. Is there life after death? And if there is life after death, can we communicate with it? Okay. Eventually, we're all going to be dead and spend a lot more time dead than we ever spent alive, and we're going to know one day, or not, as we die. It's going to happen. We'll be over there. But anyway, scientifically speaking, we haven't got concrete proof of life after death that I know of. And scientifically speaking, we don't have proof of speaking with them. But we have tons of anecdotal evidence, tons of spiritual tradition, tons of other information that we have, witnesses and things like that would, go, how should I say it? That's the other side of this. I try to give both sides. So, there's a lot on either side to take a look at. So anyway, guys, hope it wasn't too grim for you today. That's speaking with the dead. That's your little lesson today in the class. And be careful who you talk to. You never know who they are, what they are, or where they've been, or if they're alive, or if they're dead.